The After the Affair podcast with me, Luke Shillings, is here to help you process, decide, and move forward on purpose following infidelity. Together, we'll explore what's required to rebuild trust not only in yourself, but also with others. Whether you stay or leave, I can help. And no matter what your story, there will be something here for you. Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the After the Affair podcast. I'm your host, Luke Shillings, and today you're listening to episode number 168. If you are in the very early days of discovery right now, if you're struggling to sleep, maybe even eating's a challenge, replaying scenes in your mind on loop, an episode called What's Possible After Betrayal might feel a little bit insulting. Because from where you are, possible might look like getting through the day without crying in the toilets at work, managing one night of sleep without waking up in a panic at 3 a.m, getting through a conversation with your partner without shouting or shutting down, or both. And if that's where you are, I want you to hear this. I'm not here to paint some fluffy, everything happens for a reason version of recovery. You've had enough people minimising your pain, and I do not want to add to that. What I do want to do, though, is to gently open a window. Because I spend my week talking to people who started where you are right now, and are now living in a completely different internal world. Same job, same kids, often the same partner, but a very different relationship with themselves. Today, I want to share what that looks like, not to rush you, not to tell you what you should or shouldn't be feeling, but to give you and your brain something else to believe in, other than, this is my life forever. Okay, so when people first come to me, the stories are remarkably consistent. No matter where they live, what they do, how successful they are, or how together they seem to have it in from the outside, it always sounds like, I'm stuck in a cycle of negativity and frustration. I can't function. I can't focus at work. I can't parent properly. I feel like I'm going mad with rumination. I'm bouncing between anger, fear, grief, disbelief, and sometimes all of them in as short as a few minutes or an hour. I don't know whether to stay or leave, and I'm terrified of getting that decision wrong. My confidence has fallen off a cliff. I just don't trust my own judgment anymore. The nervous system is fried, sleep is broken, cortisol levels are through the roof. Physically, there's a tightness in the chest, panic in the stomach, a trembling, nausea, exhaustion that doesn't respond to rest. Emotionally, there's rage that you don't recognize in yourself, shame that you don't deserve, sadness that feels bottomless, a constant sense of being on edge. And then mentally replaying conversations, replaying images, trying to piece timelines together, catastrophizing the future, endless what ifs and why didn't I? A lot of people describe this as, I'm no longer living my life, I'm just surviving what my brain is offering me. And on top of that, there's usually a decision pressure. Do I stay? Do I leave? Do I wait? Do I give them another chance? Many have tried therapy and felt stabilised but not moved. Some have tried to handle it alone and have hit a wall. I know that you know this place. For some of you, this is your current reality. So when I talk about what's possible on the other side, I'm not talking about a fantasy life. I'm talking about people who started exactly there. Let's start with the internal world, because that's where the biggest shifts actually happen. Here's how people describe things months or a year or so down the line. I'm more at peace. I'm sleeping through the night again. I'm not trapped in my own thoughts. They still come, but they don't own me. I feel like I found myself again. I'm excited about the future, even though it doesn't look like I once imagined. I've got clarity. I can make decisions, and I trust myself with them. The ruminations don't magically vanish, but they go from being a 24/7 radio station in your head to a channel you can switch off. The emotional waves, they still come, But instead of drowning, people start saying, I can ride them. I know what's happening. I know what to do with myself when they hit. They stop being scared of their own emotions. There's more though. They understand the difference between pain and suffering, and they no longer add as much extra suffering on top. They can spot the stories that they're telling themselves and choose whether to keep them or not. They know how to do a thought download, how to separate fact from story, and how to challenge the beliefs that keep them small. One client recently summed it up beautifully. Luke made me find me, not just the person in the mirror, the person inside. That is what's possible. Some people listening to this will stay in their relationship, not because they're weak, not because they're in denial, but because, after doing their work and seeing their partner do theirs, they genuinely want to rebuild. What does after look like for them? Well, it sounds like, my marriage is in a much better place than it's been for years. We communicate more honestly than we ever did before. I'm not walking on eggshells anymore. I have boundaries and I use them. I chose to stay. I didn't just default into it. They still remember the affair. We're not pretending it never happened, but it stops being the only story in the room. They're not policing their partner's every move. They're not checking phones every day as a compulsion. They're not constantly braced for impact. And instead, there's a sense of adult-to-adult relationship. There's more emotional honesty on both sides. They understand their triggers and how to communicate them. They distinguish between genuine red flags and trauma echoes. Often they report, our relationship is deeper and more intentional than it ever was before. Not because of the affair, but because of what we both chose to do afterwards. It's not the only possible ending, but it is a real one. For others, the story goes in a different direction. They work hard on themselves. They look honestly at their partner's behaviour and capacity. They give the process a fair shot. And then they decide, I don't want this relationship anymore. I can love this person and still choose not to continue like this. Leaving is rarely easy. It is messy, it's emotional, it's frightening. But the people who leave on purpose describe something incredibly important. I have peace with my decision. I might feel sad, but I don't feel stuck anymore. I didn't run, I chose. I walked away with my integrity intact. I can co-parent well. I know I didn't abandon myself this time. Some even look back and say, it sounds bizarre to say this, but the affair ended up being the catalyst for me becoming who I was always meant to be. Not because the betrayal was good, it wasn't, obviously, but because when everything fell apart, they finally stopped living on autopilot. They stopped abandoning themselves. They learned how to think clearly, feel deeply, and decide intentionally. What's possible if you leave isn't a life scrubbed free of sadness. It's a life where sadness isn't the driver anymore, where you can feel grief and still move forward with dignity and direction. There's another group I would also like to speak to, the ones who are still very much in the middle. They're not at the beginning and they're not at the after, but in that horrible in-between. You've maybe had therapy, listened to podcasts, you've read every article there is, spoken to friends, and you still don't know whether to stay or leave. Here's what's possible even before you decide. You can go from feeling like you're going mad to understanding exactly what your brain is doing and why. You can reduce panic and anxiety even if no external circumstances have changed. You can start sleeping again. Honestly, the number of people who say, I'm just so grateful for a full night's sleep is staggering. You can rebuild enough self-trust that when you do decide, you back yourself. One person described it like this. At the beginning, Luke was rowing the boat. By the end, I realised I'd picked up the oars and I can steer now. You don't have to wait to have decided in order to feel better. You're allowed to feel more grounded while you're still figuring it all out. That is possible. You might have noticed something in everything that I've just described. Whether people stay or leave or are still mid-journey, spot what they didn't say. They didn't say, my partner finally did what I wanted. They didn't say, everything went back to how it used to be. They also didn't say, I got all the answers. The common shifts, however, are, I understand myself better. I can regulate my emotions. I know how to separate facts from stories. I have tools to work with my thoughts instead of being bullied by them. I feel more confident in my ability to handle whatever comes my way. And this is really at the heart of it. What's possible after betrayal isn't just a different relationship, it's a different you. A you who doesn't crumble every time a trigger appears, doesn't need constant reassurance from your partner to feel steady, doesn't measure your worth through somebody else's choices, doesn't live in fear of your own emotions. A you who can honestly be with yourself. A you who can set boundaries without guilt, can sit with discomfort without turning it into suffering, can make decisions based on values, not panic. That's not reserved for a special few, it's a pattern. I see it day in, day out. One thing I really want to underline here is the people whose journeys I'm drawing out from today are fundamentally not any stronger, smarter, or more resilient than you. Many of them once said things like, I don't think I'll get over this ever. I can't see a future. I don't know how I'll live with this. I'm not the kind of person who bounces back. Other people are built different. But they weren't different. They were just willing to do 3 things. Tell themselves the truth about where they were. Let somebody in to help them see what they couldn't see yet. And practice using the tools. Even when they didn't feel like it. Even when it was messy. That's it. Not perfection. Not superhuman resilience. Just small, repeated steps in the direction of their future, rather than their past. And that's what's available to you too. So, if you're listening to this in the dark, on a walk, in your car, hiding in the bathroom for 5 minutes of breathing space, here's what I'd like to leave with you. You do not have to stay where you are. This current version of your life is not the final one. You may choose to stay. You may choose to leave. You may not even know yet. But in all of those paths, something better is possible than what you currently can see. More calm than chaos. More clarity than confusion. More self-trust than self-doubt. More choice than you believe you have today. You don't have to believe that fully just yet. You just have to be open to the idea that it might be true. Because I see it every week. If today's episode has stirred something in you, a tiny flicker of hope, or even just a curiosity about what could be possible for you, this is exactly the work that I do with my clients. Through one-to-one coaching and the After the Affair Collective, I help people move from I'm just surviving this to I know who I am and I know how I want to move forward, whether that's in the relationship or beyond it. If you'd like support with that, you can find out more by contacting me, luke@lifecoachluke.com, or drop me a message on Instagram @mylifecoachluke. Wherever you are right now, you are not stuck with this version of your story forever. There is a future you who feels calmer, clearer, and more grounded than you do today. And even if you can't see them yet, I promise you, they exist. Until next time, take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you all very soon.